Hi, I'm Garm One, and this is Midgardia School Crowdfunding Show. I'm here today with B. Dave Walters. How's it going?
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for having me on.
Glad to have you. So, why don't you tell me a little bit about Dear America from a Black Guy?
Yeah, a few things. Let me just tell you up front about my pretty pink nail polish here. Actually, it's red. We found in quarantine. My girls like painting my nails, so I'm like, if such a simple thing will make you guys happy, fine. And this is it. This is where we live now.
Hell yeah,
Um,
man.
Yeah, Dear America from a Black Guy is a documentary that I'm crowdfunding for currently on Indiegogo. As of this exact second, it ends on Saturday, but I'm in talks with some people that might cause me to extend it. Um, it's kind of an extension of the work that I've been doing on for quite some time, really, especially on Twitter and YouTube, and just realizing the fact that we just need to learn how to talk to each other again. That just yelling at each other is not really helping, and the divide in this country is getting deeper and deeper. And while I have no illusions about the fact that we're all going to agree or get along, and nor am I making the statement that all sides are equal, because quite frankly, they're not, we still just need to be able to sit down at the table and be like, hey, look, you're a human being. I'm a human being. At least let's just talk from that place. And then try and find a common ground because there always is something, and then build off of that. And so that's kind of the main crux of the documentary and what I'm trying to accomplish. Fostering meaningful conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Things are not good right now, to say the least.
They are not good. Yes, I would agree with that assessment. Yeah, and unfortunately, the way they're headed is we're turning our 50% of the country, 53% of the country is turning its back on the remainder of it, and vice versa, which is no way to live in the long term. In where people are literally dying from partisan stubbornness now. People are literally dead because they rather just not listen to someone from the other side of the ideological spectrum, whether or not they were right. Um, because the fact of the matter is, if I'm about to step on a rattlesnake, it doesn't matter who's like, hey man, you're about to step on a rattlesnake. I'm not gonna be like, you're a racist, I'm not listening, and keep walking and get bitten, you know? Or you're literally about to get run over by a freight train that's going to kill us all, and it's, oh, shut up, libtard, yeah, boom. But which sounds like it's their exaggerations, but I think if you look around you right now, they're not. Um, and I think I heard somebody make a statement this past week that I think is true, that politics has replaced religion as the primary way that people sort of identify with that people define their identity these days, and it is so important to all of us. And don't get me wrong, I'm guilty of this. I'm very very left, um, but again, when it gets to the point that we can't even agree on just basic things like the earth is heating up, you know, an infectious disease is killing people, things that are observable, with your own eyes, and you can still find a way to deny that, then we got a problem. And yeah,
Yeah,
trying to
no.
help solve it.
Yeah, I'm up in Canada, and we're getting the anti-mask protests up here. I don't think
Mhm.
people are burning 5G towers yet. It's coming. I'm sure it's coming. But
What even is that, man? Like 5G causes what?
they say that
What?
every fucking time there's a new
Hmm.
a new rollout of cell phone stuff. Like
Hmm. Well,
3G, 4G, it all causes whatever and shit.
yeah, don't get me wrong. I have no doubt in the fullness of time the fact that billions of us were bombarded 24 hours a day by, very micro amounts of radiation in the form of cellular stuff. Like 50 years from now, we're going to find out that we're like, oh, we were doing that. Like that I can believe. But this whole idea that that's causing coronavirus, it's like, that's not how that works. That's not how any of this works, you know? And again, it is just willful ignorance. And it is astonishing to me that it's easier for some people to believe that there's a pedophile ring under a pizza joint in DC than people that have caught, a flu, a very bad, but it's not like they're not even unaware of the concept of the flu, like,
Yeah,
okay, you know what the flu is, right? Right. This is a really bad one that kills a lot of people, and also you might kill somebody even if you don't yourself feel sick. That you can fit that in a tweet, yeah, and it's wild. And I tell you what, though, yeah, good for you in Canada. Stay up there, man. Like the fact that like Canada closed the border to the U.S. and there's border patrol turning Americans back. I'm like, well, he got his wall. Nobody wants us to come now. And I would say I apologize if I get too political. I apologize because that's your show. But the reality is, that's where we are now, man. And quite frankly, the people that hear the things I'm saying, because so far I haven't said anything that is objectively false, you're getting upset about that. Now you understand why we need this documentary. There you
I
go.
I
You
went
know?
on a rant about the bad conditions on the reservations like 2 days ago. You're good, don't
Mm-hmm.
worry. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Given the subject matter, if we weren't getting at least kind of political, we'd be doing something wrong. I think.
I agree. And again, it's I keep hearing there's this pushback about people now are like, afraid to say what they really think. And quite frankly, that is part of why Trump won. People were embarrassed to say they were going to vote for him because they thought it would make them look bad. And I'm like, well, yeah, but you didn't want to admit that you were going to do something terrible. You just then did something terrible. Fast forward these 4 years, in it's it, when that stuff just sort of allowed to fester in a person, that's when you start getting things like incels, versus just being able to say, like, hey, um, I'm angry and frustrated about this, you know, and
Yeah.
have someone be able to be like, cool, well, then let's talk about that. Not necessarily, not just jump straight to like, how dare you? It's almost like what I'm trying to approach this is, how therapists have to be capable of talking to someone with a certain amount of basic empathy. They still have guidelines where it's like, well, if you're a risk to yourself or someone else, I still have to intervene. I still have to tell you. It's like, well, if what you're doing is harmful, I'm going to tell you that. But in the spirit of let's try to fix it, you know. And don't get me wrong, I've roasted plenty of trolls in my time, and I will again. And as this project picks up, more people will come out of the woodwork that I will rinse and I will sleep like a baby afterwards. But I'm just trying, to improve things. And like you say, the conditions on the reservation, it's it still comes down to that basic lacking of accepting of the humanity of people that is happening, because which type of reservation is it, so I can make sure that I speak accurately.
Uh, First Nations. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just didn't know if there was one in particular.
Oh yeah. Mostly the ones over in Ontario because I believe they
Yeah.
have the worst of it with their water situation, but like all of them in both Canada and America.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
people are like, though, anytime you can slap that those people on it, like people don't consider the First Nations people people, quite frankly, or they're like these like relics or artifacts, or like they're people in a zoo. And it's funny because you start talking about at least down here, real Americans. I'm like, there's only one real Americans, and it's them. If you're gonna be like, go back to where you came from, I'm like, you don't get to say that. They can, you can't. But it's yeah, it is just, it's just terrible. And in to bring this back to the concept of crowdfunding, I did crowdfund. I raised money for a documentary. I've helped with a ton of tabletop kickstarters. Like right now I'm helping with the Vampire the Masquerade Rivals expandable card game that is going right now. So I had a lot of experience in the space. In the graphic novel we raised the money for on Kickstarter, because we needed what we needed, and if we didn't get it we weren't going to do it. The documentary I'm doing on Indiegogo as a flexible goal, because pending how much is raised will affect the scope of the project. So it's been good so far. And I've enjoyed the process, and again, fighting to take it up to the next level. As of now, it's about Uh, mm, we're right around $30,000, I think, which in the midst of a massive economic collapse is still. I'm proud of having accomplished that, and just trying to do more. So,
Yeah, it's uncertain times, as they say. Uh,
to say the least.
and like, yeah, going back to the empathy thing, um, I used to hang out with a bunch of conspiracy theorists in my wild and reckless youth, and
Hmm.
like I totally buy into a lot of that.
Hmm.
Um, it really gets to you like once you get to the point where you're just like, well, everybody who disagrees with me is obviously in on the conspiracy or they've been
Hmm.
duped. It's hard to
Hmm.
talk to people.
They're
Um,
sheeple. Hmm.
yeah, sheeple, yeah.
Hmm.
When
Oh, I always
finally
hated that word.
it's rough. And that was
Hmm.
like that was Bush era, was when that
Hmm.
was.
Hmm.
Which was oh boy, another bad time. Not happy with the rerun here. Um
And yet I would trade it in a heartbeat. If they were like, check this out, we'll get rid of Trump right now, but Dubba has to get a third term, I'd be like, done, sold. Sold. Yeah.
yeah, it's
No,
yeah.
I spent a lot of time down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole too. And I mean, as a person, I'm aware that I believe like some strange things. I don't think I believe anything that is demonstrably false, um, in the sense that it's like, like I think UFOs are real, for instance, but I'm like, oh, there's a UFO. And someone's like, no, that is legit a satellite and I can prove it. Here's a satellite map, like here's a telescope. Let's zoom in on it. That's a satellite. I'm not gonna be like, no, you're like, oh, okay, that's a satellite. I got it. Um, I will tell you this: that whenever people get all like crazy high and minded on the conspiracy stuff and the Pizzagate and all the stupid things, I'm like, you can boil all of it down to one thing and one thing only, man. The people with the money and the power will do anything to keep the money and the power. When somebody's like, this is true, just ask yourself, does someone make money off of this? And if the answer is yes, well, maybe. Then you continue sifting it through to like, let's just see if there's something to this. If there's no money involved, nah. That's like people like, ooh, this coronavirus is a conspiracy. I'm like, no, it's not. We've lost trillions of dollars of wealth in the planet because of this. Trillions of dollars. So if anybody's lying to you, they're lying to you about how bad it really is. If anything is being sugarcoated, it's that. And they're like, ooh, they just want to put microchips in all of us. It's like, pimpin', you already carry them. You chipped yourself, man. You chipped yourself. So whatever you think they are doing, no, just wear a mask and wash your hands.
Yep.
That's all. Yeah, wear a mask and wash your hands, and it'll be fine. Yeah. So, no, I get it, man. It's wild. It's wild times.
Yeah.
And do you want to know the craziest thing about this year? Honestly, again, since to have spent so much time as a conspiracy theorist, the Pentagon confirmed UFOs were real twice this year. Twice they confirmed UFOs were real, and it wasn't even big news. That's how insane 2020 has been. That
It's
they're like, yeah,
yeah, it's been a year. Was the Epstein stuff this year as well? Was that last
eh,
year? I don't know, man.
time is a flat circle. I reject linear time
Yeah.
along with pants and all the other lies of the before times. It's
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm just like, they need to put freaking Giselle Maxwell or however you say it on like a 24-hour like panda cam thing where you just see that woman all the time before, because they already said she's got COVID. So I'm all like,
Oh
the
god.
fix is in on her too, man. If I
Jill
was her, I would be telling everything, put a microphone in my face, and be like a freestyle battle rap. I would put everybody's dirty laundry on blast now while you still can. So, you know,
yeah. Jelaine, I believe is how it's pronounced.
Jelaine, is that how you say name? Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't even know.
it's a weird one. Yeah, like,
Hmm.
and the thing about Pizzagate, because you mentioned it, it's hard to be like, no, there's no way there could ever be a conspiracy of rich people like sex trafficking children. Like,
Hmm.
okay, yeah, there is, but it's on the freaky private island and or the ranch in New Mexico, not under a pizza place that doesn't have a basement.
Well, yeah, and I mean, Brian Singer in Hollywood's gotten busted a couple of times for inappropriately young people at his house. Yeah, it's
And like Corey Feldman's been talking about it for like 2 decades.
yeah, the same cast of characters. That, but the problem why that stuff is so dangerous, there's two reasons why it's so dangerous. One, you rile up gullible people, like that dude went to that pizza joint with a gun that time. People get killed by this foolishness. In two, and this is one of the things that I'm trying to get at also, is you don't really give a shit. Not really. They blow this pedophilia dog whistle all the time, and I'm like, cool, migrant children are in cages now. Now, you care so much about kids. There's kids that need your help, kids that exist. But you don't care because those are little brown kids. So fuck you. Sorry, I didn't want to go
Oh
too
no,
far on
that's
that
that's
because you need
fine.
to edit it. Yeah,
No.
right. Yeah, but I'm like, you don't really care. You know, like you're not interested in innocent lives. You're interested in some BS right wing talking point that you think you can use to smear people and only want to smear the people that you want to smear. And I saw somebody, another thing that was posted that was like, Democrats or, liberals are like, everyone in Epstein's files should be investigated. And conservatives are like, Democrats at Epstein's files should be investigated. I'm like, whoever it is. And I'm from Arkansas. I grew up, I knew Bill Clinton personally. We went to the same church. Like, I spent a lot of time with the guy. I don't believe those things that they say about him are true. However, back to the point about me not ignoring proof, if it comes out in Epstein's files, they got pictures of him doing weird stuff, he needs to catch it like everyone else. He needs to be brought to justice like everyone else. That's because if the system doesn't apply, if justice doesn't apply equally, then it's not justice. And I think that's part of why you're seeing the outrage that we're seeing in our country right now, is it has been made abundantly clear that justice is not applied equally. And until it is, you're going to continue to see outrage, no justice, no peace. So
Exactly. And it's a lot of big overwhelming problems, and the big question is just like, what the hell do we do about any of this?
again, I the first step in my mind is just being able to dialogue. I can tell you, and I mean this honestly, I would rather, because again, I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm from the South down here. I would rather have a racist sit down, look me in the eye, and drop an N bomb on me that he meant than all of the smarmy, um, put up your little black square or whatever, say you're not going to vote for Trump and all of that, and then go behind our backs and do all the same duplicitous stuff. I would rather, you being like, hey, check this out, card carrying member of the Klan. I don't agree with you, but at least now we're talking. At least you know who I am and where I'm coming from. I know who you are and where you're coming from. All right, let's try and go from there. And again, it doesn't mean that we're going to get along. It doesn't ever mean that we're going to get along. But at least once we can identify what the problem really is, we can start working on the solutions. Because as long as it is buried and as long as people just aren't listening at all, it is literally killing people and it will literally kill us all, even if it's just in the form of climate change. You know, for the life of me, I do not understand. I will never understand how that became politicized. You know, where you're like, hey, look, the planet's dying. Nuh-uh. What? Like, no, like it is. Like, here's charts and graphs in coral bleaching in we can fix it. We can fix it. We just have to do some stuff. And you're when you're like blah 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 blah, I'm not listening. It's like, what? you
Yeah,
know?
I'm from Alberta. We have a fairly significant oil industry here. I'm not sure if
Mm-hmm.
you're aware.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Oil stale.
yeah, yeah, the oil sands. It's bad, and people are like, oh yeah, climate change is just a conspiracy to like make green energy companies and liberal politicians money. Like, you know how much money the oil industry makes? You know how like fucked up our environment is because of this?
Yep.
Like,
It's like you're close, you have it exactly backwards. It's
yeah,
like you said the right words, flip them over. And I mean, again, it's been proven. Proven. The oil companies knew in the 70s. They'd done the projections. They knew. And it was just like, well, but we can make gajillions of dollars until then, and we'll course correct when we have to. Like I said, It's you want to know who's lying to you, who profits from it. Is it the plucky up and comers, or the ones that have a entrenched infrastructure and mechanism for making untold money, who have clearly bought all the politicians? Again, that's not a conspiracy. You can just see who's taking donations from whom, you know, and then just ask yourself, whose interests are they really protecting? That's not a crazy wackadoo thing, especially when if you take the time and you consider it and you're like, well, yeah, but, and come back down. Sure. It's like down here, miners in Pennsylvania was a whole big thing. And Hillary Clinton had the abominable position of trying to say, hey, we'll help teach you new jobs. Because not only is your current job going extinct, it literally kills you. Black lung, and that was just untenable. How dare she suggest that, we should do something else with our lives? And I'm like, look, man, if your grandfather was a miner and he dug 10 tons of coal in his life, and your great grandfather dug 20 tons of coal in his life, and you're a miner and you've dug 5 tons of coal in your life, and your son is telling you that he wants to be a miner, the burden is on you to be like, okay, so wait a second, and that doesn't mean that everybody has to be like some hyper educated liberal, because, education is such a terrible state to exist in. The world still needs mechanics, farmers. Like, you can have build windmills, you can still have a salt of the earth, work with your hands, laborious job if that's important to you, that is not going to kill the planet and kill you too, you
Yeah.
know um which is, again, it is insane to me that those have become politicized conversations, because there used to be a dude whose job was to deliver a block of ice to your house to put in your ice box to keep your stuff cold. Then we got refrigerators. We didn't need that dude anymore. There used to be a job where there was the people that operated the switchboard, putting in the cords to connect calls. Now those people only work for the Continental and John Wick. um, Progress moves along, and I've never seen a time before. Um, well, Edison tried, I suppose, but for the most part, where progress was so impeded for the sake of trying to coddle a certain segment of society. And it all came down to those votes in those swing states, because that vote was important in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania was important. But I mean, nurses, I think I saw a statistic, it's something like, there's something insane. Like, all the miners and steel workers are like 10,000 people total, like 10 or 12 like total. And there's like 80,000 nurses, but no one was like trying to get the nurse vote. They just wanted that group and those families to steer that just enough, and you get this disproportionate emphasis on some people, which again is garbage, which
Yeah.
again is one of the many things that I'm trying to get us to just talk about,
Yeah.
spared from the emotion of it, spared from the histrionics, just like, here's the math, here's how this is, you
And
know
to be fair, in the Pennsylvania case, it could have gone
Mhm.
a little bit better if they hadn't suggested learn to code. Because I'm actually
That
a
was
little
a
bit.
jump.
Sorry.
Yeah, that was a big jump. Yeah.
Yeah, and then a bunch like I'm actually a little bit familiar with this one. And then a bunch of them paid a bunch of money to learn to code, and then never managed to land a job because they still live in Pennsylvania. Um, yeah, that there there were
I mean,
mistakes made.
I don't know those guys, and I mean, it's in my experience, coding is in demand everywhere if you're any good at it. But again, I don't know those specific individuals. I don't know, but
Well,
I do know
coding
it's going to
with
kill us all.
yeah,
Yeah.
coding with
Mhm.
several years of experience is in demand. Coding with a like 3 month crash course, not so much. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
coal mining is bad. The oil industry is bad. Lord, I
Mhm.
wish my government hadn't spent the last 50 years basing my entire province's economy on oil.
Well,
Great.
yeah, because I was I owned an insurance industry, and I worked in the financial services in the early 2000s. And the reason why I knew about the Alberta oil sands was, at the time, this would have been about 03, 04. They were like it's the next thing, like push everybody to invest in it. They were telling us crazy stories about like people working at Subway up like near the um out at the remote places where the oiling infrastructure was. They were making like $30 an hour to work at Subway. And yeah, that they were like, that's it, push everybody in that direction. And it was like, I mean, again, I do comprehend in broad strokes the fact that when you're from, India or rural China or, the quote unquote developing world, whatever that looks like, having watched everybody else ball out of control with their big cars and things all this time, and now being told you don't get to have that when that's a dream that you want. I mean, I get that that can seem unfair, but I mean, we were wrong, you know? We were wrong. And I think there is, the solutions exist. The solutions exist now for hybrid and electric and all of that. It's just people have to understand and demand that. And that's never going to work if those things don't keep being politicized issues. And that is never going to happen unless we can just sit down and talk. And let me say also, I don't mean to make this seem wholly disingenuous in the sense where let's talk only means convince conservatives that they're wrong. I fully comprehend, from my point of view, I try to be objective, but I'm biased. Of course I'm biased, you know? So I can comprehend that if somebody's like, hey, okay, so look, this has been my livelihood, this has been my way of life, this is who we are, this is the life that we choose to lead. Um, I need to hear that also and figure out it's like, well, where can we meet in the middle? Because the current state of things is untenable. The current state of things is unsustainable. Um, Even when Mango Mussolini ran on like, we're gonna bring steel back to America. It's like, no, you won't. You won't, because you can't. And even if you did build a new factory, which you won't, and he hasn't, the factory that used to take 2,000 people because of automation takes 20 now. The world has changed. Those jobs are gone. They will never return, period. And I realize that you might not like the way that tastes, but that's where we are. So let's work together to figure out those solutions because the automation's not going away. And honestly, if you're going to pick your real enemy was not migrant laborers. Your real enemy was not globalization. Your real enemy was automation. But like I said, there used to be a dude that delivered a box of ice to your house, and automation put him out of business. There used to be people that put in a physical switchboard and automation put them out of business. The next thing to go is long distance truckers as electric trucks kick in. It's going to be a whole nother segment that is gone and it is not going to stop. So we have to figure out how to not leave people behind, to not think of them as flyover states, as we call here, as people that we're just going to cut off and let them die. They're still human beings. They still deserve a life and dignity, but they need a life and a dignity that can work for all of us, including them, you know? Yeah. And I think it can be done. I think it can be done, but it won't be possible. There's a quote by James Baldwin, and I'm paraphrasing. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until you face it. you know yeah, and we got we're having to face some hard things, I think, all over the world now. And hopefully it'll be, I think, one way or another, in 50 or 100 years from now, in our floating cities like freaking Waterworld, or 1,000 years from now out in space, people are going to look back to 2020 as a crossroads where things changed. Whichever way they are going is yet to be seen. But I think historians will be able to look back to this moment, this period in time, to be like, oh, here is where it went. Or, or,
Yeah. It's one of those divergence points that all the alternate history stories are based around.
100%. Yep. 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 Yep.
So,
So,
speaking of the year of our Lord 2020,
mhm.
the projected delivery date of this is August of 2021. What do you think the world's going to look like in Do you think America's still gonna be around? Do you think we'll all
Oh
be
yeah.
dead?
No, not by August 2021. Maybe by August like 2030. No, we still got some meat on the bone down here. Um, yeah, it's well, it really depends. There is a major inflection point is coming up in November with the election, pending how that shakes out, pending who wins, pending if it's legal and above board. Um, I think that is the main thing that is going to the results of the election are the main for us at least, and by extension for a lot of people because it is going to affect the planet. Unfortunately, that orange disgrace has messed up things for all over the place. Um, that's going to be the big thing. I think by next year we will have effective treatment. I don't know that we'll have a cure because the cure is usually not in it, but even an effective treatment is going to help loosen a lot of these things. I think we'll start seeing gatherings again. It won't be the same. I think we're going to be in the mask business for a long time. We're going to be in the mask business for a long time. Um, but I think we will start seeing some semblance of things again. You know, we'll see conventions again, sporting events, because human beings are social creatures. We need to be together, um, even if that is at a certain amount of risk. We still need it. Um, and I think we'll still be seeing protests because somebody else pointed out, and I think it's true. A lot of people think that even if Biden wins, it's like, yeah, okay, everything's back to normal. It's like, well, no, it's not. And until we see like meaningful systemic change, it's not going to be normal. I also think whichever side loses, we're going to see a lot of uprising and unrest, which again is why I'm trying to facilitate some open lines of communication. Um, but I think, believe it or not, and I will say this, because I'm about to have to scoot, unfortunately. I do think in the fullness of time, this will have been good for us. And I don't say that lightly because I realize some people have suffered tremendously. People have died, people have lost loved ones, and I do not mean to make light of that. But I think this pandemic, I think all the protests and unrest, all the political unrest have caused all of us to bring into sharp focus what does and doesn't matter and what we can and can't live without. And I think and people won't forget that. And I think hopefully that is going to cause us to make some different choices, not just as people, but as a society, as a planet, as a species, that is going to take us in a better direction. You know, we've proven we cannot drive if we have to. You know, we've proven we can go without certain creature comforts if we have to. And we've also proven just how important it is to be able to connect with people that we care about. And we were sort of forced to just take a minute and sit with our own minds and sit with our own feelings and learn about ourselves. And I think I feel better overall about the trajectory and future of our country than I did May 1st.
Well, damn.
But
Yeah.
that being said, if you have the ability, yes, please support the documentary. It's called Dear America from a Black Guy. It's on Indiegogo. Like I said, as of now, it's stopping on Saturday. I think I might extend it. It's just I have some other conversations I have to have this week. But either way, I'm going to roll with it with whatever we raise. So it is also pinned at the top of my Twitter. I'm Twitter at bdavewalters. You know, you can come talk to me. You can shoot me a DM. My DMs are open if you want to have a conversation. If you come with some foolishness, you will get rinsed. But if you want to talk, I'm willing to talk. And yeah.
Well, there's a link to it right below this video, and it has been a pleasure to talk to you, sir.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I'm sorry that I I
Oh,
have to beat feet so quickly,
it's
but
all good.
yeah. No, you be safe up there, man. Be safe. And
Same.
hey, maybe this one, you know what? When it's done and it's out, I'll come back on and we'll talk about it. We'll compare notes about what has happened over the last year and where we are. So,
Sounds like a
should be
plan,
all
man.
good.
Yeah.
Groovy.
All right. And for those of you watching at home, have a good night.